Welcome to Nada Yada Island.
We're back on the Nada Yada Island Confessions Show. Benny is about to tell us how he found two loves. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks to Metro, I found iPhone 12 and Apple Watch SE.
At Metro, get the perfect match of both iPhone 12 with 5G and Apple Watch SE for only $99.99. You heard that right. Both for just $99.99. Holidays with Nada Yada Yada. Only at Metro by T-Mobile.
Bring your number and ID, sign up for Metro Flex Plus, and add a watch line. Not available if you're with T-Mobile or been with Metro in the past 180 days. Limit 2 per account.
This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm your host, Mac Pritchard. I'm also the founder of Mac's List. It's a job board in the Pacific Northwest that helps you find a fulfilling career. Every Wednesday, I talk to a different expert about the tools you need to get the work you want. A strong personal brand can make a big difference in your job search. How good is yours? Jessica Fiesta George is here to talk about Personal Branding 101 for job seekers. A seasoned recruiter, Jessica has more than 20 years of leadership in talent acquisition. She also hosts the Just Get Hired podcast. It's a weekly career advice show. Jessica joins us from Pensacola, Florida. Well, Jessica, let's start with definitions. What is a personal brand?
So personal branding refers to really the practice of marketing yourself, and in this case, your career as your brand. Whether you look at it or not, you are your brand, you are your business, you are your own company. When you influence someone else's decision, you are inherently using your brand, your image, and your reputation. So when you can clearly define who you are, what you stand for, and that unique value that you can offer, that is what encompasses your personal brand, whether that's online or if you're offline.
What difference can a personal brand or your personal brand make in your job search? How can that affect the next job you get?
Oh, it makes a huge difference because it will help you stand out. If in this crowded job market, a strong personal brand will set you apart from a lot of other candidates. It also helps potential employers see why you're the best fit for that role and also make you a little bit more memorable. If you have a distinct personal brand, I'll say, it makes you more memorable and also allows recruiters and hiring managers to think of you when different opportunities arise. Also, I think having a good personal brand is increasing your exposure. If you have a well-crafted brand, that will increase not only your online visibility, but it does make it easier for employers to find you. And you start to network and attract like-minded professionals. And I'm sure we'll get into networking a little bit later, but building your authority and credibility also will help you in showcasing your expertise, your accomplishments. And then you start becoming what I call a thought leader, especially in your industry. A strong brand will establish you as the thought leader, maybe in your field, which can also help attract employers when they're trying to look for talent. And if you have more of a consistent brand image, that ensures that everything kind of ties together, whether that's your resume, your online profile, and your personal interactions, they start to kind of mesh together and gives you better clarity in the purpose in communicating what your career goals are so that people understand long-term what your potential could be.
There's a lot going on there, isn't there, Jessica? I mean, what I'm hearing is when you have a good personal brand, from an employer's perspective, you're memorable. I heard you say you stand out, you establish credibility, authority. Do you have to be a marketing expert to do these things? What would you say to somebody who says, I'm just looking for a job. I'm not an expert in marketing. How do I do these things? And I know we're going to talk about that, but what skills do you need to have a strong personal brand?
You know, a lot of people think that personal branding is something professional marketers or social media influencers can do, but Truth is, I mean, anyone can build their personal brand. You don't have to have a marketing degree or years of experience in advertising. Really, the bottom line about personal branding, whenever I talk about this, is that it's about being authentic and just consistent in the way that you present yourself. So if you learn to identify your skills, your experiences, your values, what you're passionate about, that's your story. And when you start sharing your story and sharing your expertise, that is how you start building your reputation and ultimately your brand. So for instance, if you're an HR professional, maybe you talk about experiences like recruitment, you can start sharing tips and engaging with other people in your field on different platforms. For instance, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is key when it comes to networking for professionals. When you start sharing your journey and what you know, then you start creating more of a polished, so to speak, marketing campaign. And so to me, you don't have to have a degree to do that. If you're just constantly setting aside time to do that and planning ahead and leveraging all the tools and focusing on all of those key things, and you're consistent, that's what builds your brand.
Well, let's talk about how to do that, Jessica. And I know you mentioned this a moment ago. It's important to be clear about your job search goals and why they matter to you. What do you have in mind here? Why is that an important first step in establishing a strong personal brand during a job search?
Well, in the job search, it's a crowded job market. I mean, if you look at LinkedIn all the time, you see people posting that they're still looking for work. Employers look for candidates who bring something unique to the table. When you have a strong personal brand, you're showcasing your unique value proposition. And so I always tell people to kind of start there. You have to think about what makes you different from the candidate that might be applying for the same job. That could be in your skills, your experiences, your perspective. So really understanding that is important. And it really just starts with self-reflection. When you start thinking about building your brand, what is it that you're trying to get out of even creating it, right? And if in this case, it is trying to get a new job, get promoted, or just stand out to promote either your brand or your business, then, setting a goal is ultimately the direction that you need to focus on first. And then everything kind of falls in line after that.
And what do clear job search goals look like in your experience? How specific do you need to be about the position you want or the places where you want to work? What have you seen be effective in creating a strong personal brand?
Well, I think really targeting, first of all, really understanding what it is you want out of your career, whether that is getting to the next level or even changing jobs. So just being clear and understanding your own personal goals. Like, my goals are going to be different than yours, right? So it's going to really mean you honing in on like what your specific skills are, where can that transfer into other positions, targeting other companies that maybe you aspire to work for, doing your research and finding people who work there and constantly networking and engaging with them is going to open up new opportunities. And usually employers and recruiters seek out those candidates who have that strong visible presence.
Can you have a strong personal brand if you're not clear about your job search goals?
I don't think so. I mean, again, in order for you to have a brand, everything has to have a clear goal in mind. You have to have direction and purpose, and that will help you focus your efforts on what truly matters and aligns with what you want to do long term.
We're going to talk about more steps involved in creating a strong personal brand during a job search, but in general, Jessica, how long does it take to do this kind of work? We all have busy calendars and other commitments. What's been your experience?
Well, personal branding is not something that can happen overnight. It takes time. I mean, if you think about some of the brands that you enjoy buying and the places that you like to eat or shop, it's taken them time. It's not overnight success. So it doesn't mean that you have to spend all of your time, but it does take it is a little time consuming. So if you set aside time each week to work on your personal brand, that could be 10, 15, 30 minutes. It makes a huge difference. I like to try to plan ahead with a content calendar if you're trying to boost up your online presence and planning out your posts and all of your activities. That will help you stay organized and consistent. There are a lot of tools, and of course, AI helps now that we have all of the tools available with like ChatGPT and different content management systems that will help you streamline all of your efforts. And then just focusing on high quality. I think a lot of people, especially who are trying to brand themselves on, say, LinkedIn or Instagram, TikTok, and all of the social, they chase these vanity metrics and feel like I need to have more followings or more followers or subscribers, when in actuality, it's not about that. It's about having an engaged community and people who are there to genuinely support your efforts.
Terrific. We're going to take a break. Stay with us. When we come back, Jessica Fiesta George will continue to share her advice on Personal Branding 101 for job seekers. When you want to learn a new language, there's no substitute for immersion and working with a native speaker. But most of us can't move to a new country and take daily language classes. However, thanks to Babbel, you can still learn a new language. With Babbel, you get everything you need, from vocabulary words to culture, to have real-world conversations. And all it takes is 10 minutes a day. I'm using Babbel to get ready for an upcoming vacation in Germany. And with Babbel, I'm learning the basic German I need to navigate restaurants, hotels, and airports. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only our listeners at babbel.com/dreamjob. Rules and restrictions may apply. We all know that first impressions matter, and the first thing a hiring manager sees is your cover letter. That letter gives you an opportunity to wow an employer. But too many job seekers squander this chance. They send a cover letter with typos, a sloppy format, and cut and paste text. And it's not enough to avoid those rookie mistakes. You also have to tell a compelling story. This sounds complicated, but in fact, if you follow a few rules, you can write a cover letter that stands out from your competition. Our Max List Guide shows you how to do this. It's called Simple Rules for a Winning Cover Letter. Go to maxlist.org/cover letter. We show you the content, structure, and style that hiring managers like. You'll get examples and templates you can use to write your own winning cover letter. Get Simple Rules for a Winning Cover Letter today. Go to maxlist.org/cover letter. We're back in the Max List studio. I'm talking with Jessica Fiesta George. She's a seasoned recruiter, and Jessica has more than 20 years of leadership experience in talent acquisition. She also hosts the Just Get Hired podcast. It's a weekly career advice show. Jessica joins us from Pensacola, Florida. Now, Jessica, before the break, we were talking about Personal Branding 101 for job seekers, and we talked about why personal branding matters to employers, how it can help you stand out, especially in the current crowded job market. And we began talking about steps you can take to strengthen your personal brand. And we touched on the importance of having a clear job search goal. Another step I know you recommend for a successful personal brand is to write your own mission statement. How does having a personal mission statement help with your personal brand and your job search?
Well, if you think about, most companies have a mission, vision, value statement that they live and breathe by. So when you start with a mission statement that is personal to you, that's going to define your purpose and what you stand for. And I think that guides your decisions, your actions, and again, ensures consistency across your personal brand, online or offline. So when you start doing it, it helps you identify what your values are, what you're passionate about, what motivates you, and then ensures that you're having a concise message across the board, and that it's easy for you to start remembering and communicating that, especially if you're talking to hiring managers or when you're showing up on platforms like LinkedIn.
What's the best way to put together a personal mission statement? Should you follow practices you might have learned in the workplace? What have you seen work with the people you coach?
Well, I feel like, once you get down to the very basics, and, I've said this a couple of times, is what is your ultimate goal in creating your brand? What are your values? What are you passionate about? Just writing those out and creating goals, that are, we talk about SMART goals all the time in business, specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time bound. Once you write all of those out, then you can start aligning what your values are, on a personal front and then professionally. And then from that, you can start building out what your personal mission statement is.
Another step you recommend for creating a strong personal brand when you look for work is to be consistent in your messaging in everything you do online. What kind of messaging are we talking about here, Jessica? And why is it important to be consistent in what you say, especially online?
Well, it's important because consistency in your messaging is just going to build trust and credibility. It's going to create a cohesive image when you show up across all platforms. If you do it well, it's going to unify your profile and ensure that your online presence, whether that's Twitter, your personal website, LinkedIn, your resume, all of that is consistent and your messaging is consistent. Your content with your personal mission statement and your goals is also important to keep in mind. A lot of times, if you are inconsistent, if you're not clear, again, it starts with your personal mission statement, but if you're not clear from the very beginning, you start sending mixed messages, and that creates a lot of different personas on different platforms, and that's what you want to avoid. So if you keep your profile up to date, your content updated, and it reflects that mission, then again, consistency is key and you'll be cohesive across whatever you're doing.
How can inconsistent messaging online affect your job search? What happens when a hiring manager looks you up, Googles you, and sees those inconsistent messages? What difference can it make in hiring decisions?
Well, you come across really as someone that not sure about themselves. And when employers are looking at your personal brand, they're looking for a couple of things. They're looking for cultural fit. Are you going to align with the values and the work ethic that the company has set in place? Does your personal brand demonstrate that alignment? How are you going to show up on the team? If you're hired, does your brand give the employer insights on how you might fit into that team dynamic? Also, employers want to make sure that you're not a risk when it comes to hiring you. They look at your presence online. Are you someone that they can trust? Are you transparent? And then ultimately, when you get hired into an organization, you become a brand ambassador. So what type of brand message are you setting for the company? You have a direct influence on the company's reputation when you're hired. And so if you have a good personal brand that can enhance a company's reputation, then employers kind of look at it more positively and want to reach out to you.
In our first segment, you mentioned networking and how important it was, both to personal branding and looking for work. And let's talk about networking. I know that you say successful personal branders pay attention to where you network, who you network with, and who you add to your network. Walk us through those three steps. Why are they so important to your personal brand, especially during a job search?
Well, networking is crucial for career growth. And I know you've had guests on your show who've talked about this very thing. The quality of your network can open doors to opportunities and provide you valuable support and insights and introduce you to things that you probably weren't aware of. And if you do it well and you're strategic, you can really focus in on aligning your specific career goals and your interests. Again, if you chase vanity metrics, that's not going to help you, but you have to learn how to build quality over quantity. If you prioritize those meaningful relationships, either in person or online, you're simply increasing your number of people who can also introduce you to other people. So, that's important. And then really engaging actively. If you interact with your network, share insights, offer help, participate in discussions, that's going to help you be top of mind whenever it comes to opportunities.
How do you do that strategically, Jessica? Do you tie it back to your personal mission statement and your job search goals? And do you say no to opportunities? What have you seen be most effective?
I think most effective, you have to avoid adding people to your network without considering how they align with your goals. I know a lot of people just accept random, invites, let's say on LinkedIn, just because, like I mentioned earlier, chasing those vanity metrics. When you start strategically adding people who are going to bring value or can bring a little bit more thought into, especially your job search, that's important. Also, not just collecting connections, but actively nurturing the people that you connect with. Many times, and I'm guilty of doing this, I'll accept an invite with a good intention to follow up with them or, learn a little bit more about them. The more you can actively put that as part of your rotation every day to build your brand, you have to nurture and engage your relationships. And then no matter what you do, it doesn't matter if, especially in this heated political environment, you have to remain professional across all platforms and in your interactions and be mindful of how other people may not see things the same way you do.
Well, it's been a great conversation. Now tell us, what's next for you, Jessica?
So next for me, I'm still recording my podcast, Just Get Hired, and I lead talent acquisition for a private equity firm and continuing to help our founder-led organizations with building their talent process and just continuing to network and meet great people like you.
Well, it's a terrific show. I do hope listeners will check out Just Get Hired. I enjoyed listening to your interviews and your solo episodes, so kudos to you. And I also know listeners can learn more about you by connecting with you on LinkedIn. And when you do reach out to Jessica, please mention that you heard her on Find Your Dream Job. Now, Jessica, given all the great advice you've shared today, what's the one thing you want a listener to remember about personal branding 101 for job seekers?
I can summarize it in one sentence. Your brand is your story, and you need to make sure it's one that you're proud to tell.
Next week, our guest will be Beth Benatti Kennedy. She's a leadership coach, a resiliency training expert, and a speaker with more than 20 years of experience. It's important to deal with disappointment when you look for work. And resilience also matters after your job search ends. Join us next Wednesday when Beth Benatti Kennedy and I talk about how growing your resilience helps your career. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job. This show is produced by Max List. Susan Thornton Hoff schedules our guests and writes our newsletter. Lisa Kislin-Barry Anderson manages our social media. Our sound engineer and editor is Matt Biorillo. Dawn Moe creates our transcripts, and our music is by Freddie Trujillo. This is Mac Pritchard. See you next week. Have you ever been asked this in a job interview? Tell me about a time when you didn't agree with your boss. What would you say? This is what's called a behavioral interview question, and it's a common tactic. Employers use this kind of question to explore your fit for a job based on your past experience. It can be an easy question to answer if you have the right strategy. I show you how to answer these gotcha questions in our free Max List guide, 100 Behavioral Interview Questions You Need to Know. To get your copy, visit maxlist.org/questions. You'll also learn 4 simple steps for answering any behavioral interview question. Again, that's maxlist.org/questions. You can count on getting these questions in your next interview. Why not get the answers before you walk into the interview room? Go to maxlist.org/questions.